Welcome back to another exciting installment on the 1986 K3500 and potentially the last video for quite some time until Donald finishes the wiring. Today, we have to mount the intercooler, we have to do the power steering, we have to do the fuel lines, we have to get the clutch, and then I need to make him his intercooler piping. Donald has chosen to do stainless, so of course, we reached out to Stainless Bros, Tycon, whatever you want, got some material. And we got a flange off of the old eBay right here. We have this 45 that goes into the intercooler, this 90 I got to weld on, and then we'll start playing. It's kind of a weird angle with the boot and this 45, so my thought is I'm going to bead roll this, probably just fully weld this 90 on, and then we'll start building our pipe. So a lot of fab content coming at you on this one. Nothing too crazy if you're new to welding. I was not even 2 years ago, and some of my work's still not the best, but we do our best to put out a decent product. It's all welded here, everything done in-house. Just a simple Everlast. I do have the water-cooled function for aluminum. It is a PowerTig 255. We get most of our consumables from FERC. We will be welding with this. This is their BBW cup, and then I got a titanium shield. And if you don't have one and you're a TIG welder or you're thinking about it, these little Sharpie tools, it's a Milwaukee tool that they make into a tungsten sharpener. Well worth the money. Amazon gives you a perfect tip every time, and we'll be back purging. You know, we're set up. Let's get to work. So there is our driver's side intercooler. I gotta cut this bevel down, so disregard that, but look at that fit up. Ain't bad, made it fit with a 45. Here's the first part of our passenger side. You got the flange welded on, and then that one will probably need a couple pie cuts just to jog the angle, but we're gonna go ahead and kick the time lapse on again, get this old girl finish welded. Shouldn't take long, 3-inch, and it's only 2 welds, but getting there. sorry our time lapse died on us, but here's the finished product. Little coloring for the joints there, but pretty simple, easy to make. 45, 2 straights. And then you guys can kind of see what we have going on over here. Got that 90 welded on, got this bead already rolled. I found that rolling the beads first helps. That way you're not trying to roll a bead on an awkward looking pipe. Now it'll probably be 2 pie cuts, because I don't have any like 22-degree bends. 2 pie cuts to get this pipe straight, and then a straight piece into there. So we'll have 1, 2, hopefully just 3 places to weld. Okay, and here's that passenger side. We gotta clock that boot just a little different, but there's the gist of it. 90 straight, 3 pie cuts, 45 with legs. And here's our result. It took about 5 hours. The pie cuts really slow you down, but we got this pipe in, lays nice, doesn't rub on the fender. This pipe, I did this one really tight because when the engine, if you're ever fabbing piping, okay, the engine torques this way. So you always want this pipe a little tighter, this pipe a little bit more room to go down. With the boots over here, I wasn't too worried because it'll actually roll the boot this way. But on this one, especially with a pipe that kind of comes straight up, this is stuffed really far into this intercooler boot and that intercooler boot as well. So everything's done. 3-inch stainless. Yes, we did purge it. We got this clamp off eBay. I think it's Barter Turbo Service. And we used the boots that Banks, or no, not Banks. I think these are HPS boots that Donald got. So we have our intercooler piping done. Now we're going to move on to the last. Then we moved on to our intercooler tabs here. Not too exciting. 1-inch flat stock. And I basically cut about 90% through, bent it, TIG welded it, cut 90% through, TIG welded it, or bent it, TIG welded it. Kind of radius the edges just to make it look a little nicer. We have some nut certs that we're going to put in there, but for right now, it will keep the pressure forward, holding the intercooler away from the engine, which is what we needed. So again, freehand, I mean, I'm sure somebody could do better, but that's what we came up with. I thought about doing that tab down there, but with the grill on, I don't even know how much of this you'll see. So it's not symmetrical from the factory, and as much as my OCD is kicking in, we're just gonna let it ride. So I think now our fabrication is done. So before we put our power steering pump on our project truck here, we're gonna go ahead and reseal it. We got this seal kit from Power Driven Diesel. Here's the part number. You can also just order it from this guy, but I always like to support my OG, my alma mater, so to speak. You're gonna pull this apart, pretty easy. The 2 17 mil nuts pull this part off. This kind of looks like this. Sorry, I just started going. And then over here you have your 4 bolts that hold this power steering pump here to your bracket, or your center, I guess, extension housing, whatever you want to call it. And these are all the same from 91.5 to 02, so VE, VP, and P pump. Then I took it a step further. This is your vacuum pump wear plate here, and this is your rotor style pump. You guys can see how this vacuum pump works. This one's still in good shape, but they do sell replacement rotors for these pumps. It's really not hard. You just pull it out. But moving on, we have essentially 3 or 4 gaskets. You have your gasket that mounts it to the timing case. You have your inner O-ring that seals the vacuum pump vacuum plate to the vacuum pump. You have your gasket that goes on the extension shaft seal. And then you have your spring gasket here to seal in here. And this is where 99% of most of your leaks are. Couple of ways to deal with it. Now, if you look at this, you can see where that shaft was riding right there. You can also see where this part here rides in here. Right there. Now, I know a couple of guys that do this a lot different. I've seen guys double gasket it. I've seen them shim them up, and that's usually what I do. I take something and I basically grind it until it fits the ID correctly and barely hits the OD, and it'll move the shaft seal up. And that's pretty much it. Pretty easy to do. A lot of people struggle with it. I think the biggest thing is They don't grease the seals. They put it all back together, and it probably leaks worse than when you took it apart. There's also a seal on the reservoir itself. This kit does not come with that seal, but honestly, most of the time, it's usually cheaper to just replace this. This is like a $60 pump, but Donald's isn't leaking there, so it doesn't even matter. We're going to move on and get this put back together. So if any of you second gen guys, or if you're putting one of these in this square body here, this is the stock square body one. Let me get this thing to focus here. The thinner cabled one. And here's the second gen one. As you can see, the wall grommets are interchangeable. The second gen one's a little longer, but it does have the P-pump link. And this is the part we got off of Amazon right here. Here's the Amazon part number. It is a replacement for your P-pump throttle linkage. Don's gonna get to working on that. I'm gonna go under this truck and figure out our fuel plumbing. Now, on this old girl, we have our fuel pump located right here. Now, I do believe Donald added this, or someone added this. I don't believe this to be factory, at least the way it is. So this is obviously our supply side. This is our return side. My thought process is intercept everything right here, especially obviously the feed line. Intercept it here and go up and over the transmission. Now, I've also had half a mind to clock the pump a little different and run it across here on this cross member, but that's kind of what we're gonna do. Gonna be kind of hard to film, so I will show you guys what it looks like once I get it all ran. And now we have our, I'm not gonna say finished cut, but a very good rough cut where Donald will be able to put a shifter boot over this. Gave it some room so that way when the motor rocks it doesn't vibrate. Gave it some room so that way if you ever do have to pull the transmission, there's room for the shift column or tower to come back and unspine itself. So that was kind of how we cut it the way we did. Remember, there was this four-wheel drive shifter that was here, so really we took it there, and then I cut an angle, which he could square that off if he wants. I was just trying to remove as little of the floor as I could. That way there's plenty of room to put that boot over it. Now he does have a modified shifter. It is over here. Where'd you run off with it? Okay. So this is the shifter here. It's got less of a kick in the part that threads into the, or that pushes into the NV. It's about a 15-degree less angle back, so that way it doesn't hit the seat. He's gonna work on that. I'm gonna wrap up these fuel lines, and then we'll move on to the power steering. We have our return and supply spliced in. We reused his pump, which if this turns out to be a problem, we'll just, fix this splice here. But I got his pump moved up, and it's hard to tell, but if this pump sits lower than this part of the floor, it is pretty close to his drive shaft, but we moved it up and out of the way. And then I secured his hoses, a couple of P-clamps insulated, one there, one up front there, and then it goes up to the motor. We're gonna route his crankcase down here. That way we can get his crankcase finalized, the breather off the tappet cover. But I think this is about it for under the truck, other than, I guess, the hydraulics. But moving right along, I'm gonna get the fuel lines all hooked up and then move on to the power steering. Well, if you could tell by the fuel dripping, we're getting awfully close. Got it primed almost all the way to the pump with the hand primer. For those of you that are new to 12 valves, you see that black plunger, push that in and out. Once it's fully primed, you'll hear it kind of squeak, but got our fuel supply return hooked up. I'm gonna finish tightening up some of these lines here, and we're one step closer. Donald got fluid in the trans. He's putting clamps on the intercooler pipe. After this, power steering pump, and I gotta drop a little burble on the old throttle linkage there, and I think we'll try to fire it up. We won't worry about the clutch just yet. We'll get the motor started, and then we'll worry about the clutch. And just a couple of pumps later, you hear that noise, guys? That is the fuel pushing by that relief valve. So we have fuel all the way into the injection pump. Everything's tight now. I don't remember the lines, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But everything is tight. No leaks that I can see yet, which is a good thing. And now we're gonna get the power steering pump on. And those are those 2 bolts right there, right here, and right down there. So we'll get those 2 bolts out, RTV it up. Normally there's a bracket that supports the back of this power steering pump, but Donald's got broken off, so I'm not even gonna screw with it. We're just gonna put it on like that. I've ran them like that for a long time without any problems. And then it's close. So here's what we have going on for power steering. So the factory line off this hydro booster worked. You just have to bend it. You have to open the loop on the back, open that, and then tweak it right here so it clears the frame and the power steering body. Then on the return side, we read a lot about people using a T and cavitating. So my thought process is when you have fluid going one way and intersecting in a 90 degree, it obviously creates a high pressure, low pressure, and it adds air. So what we did was we used a Y fitting with AN. So it's -6 AN, straight to a Y, which is right here. And then I used the 90 to curve this hose around and match the factory to the return from the hydro boost. We used a -6 straight out of the gearbox, and then a 45 in to the power steering. That's how we did it. The factory fuel return line is hooked up. We have engine oil going in, nothing but the finest, and everything is tight. The last little thing I got to do is work on his throttle linkage, but I kind of need some motivation. So I think we are going to go ahead and try to start this thing once he gets the engine oil in it. To do that, we are going to hook up the jump box here to a battery positive, and then I'll probably grab the motor mount bolt right there for the battery negative, and then use a little jumper switch. And then we'll make sure we have a piece of wood in case this thing decides to run away. On a 12 valve, when you start it and you've modified the fuel quite a bit, you want to be able to block something. So I've seen a lot of guys try to block the turbo without this pipe in. That will not do anything. You have to block the air going in. So because this intercooler pipe is out, we will put our hand over this intake, and it's got a lot of suction, so be ready for it. If you do the turbo, I suggest a piece of wood or really thick cardboard. Don't use plastic, like shrink wrap. It'll suck it right through. But that is the procedure we'll have. Again, we have all of the fuel bled to the P-pump. Now we have to prime the injection lines. To do that, most of the time you would crank it with the injectors disconnected. I don't want to make a mess, so we're going to use John Deere starting fluid just because it's easier on me, easier on everything. That John Deere stuff's really expensive, but it works really, really well. From there, we'll get it fired up, and then we'll do the clutch, intercooler pipe, and then fix this throttle leakage. We got that good. You already know. Let me put this light up there. The junky. The nose candy. So we have the jump box hooked up to the battery positive cable down there at the starter to both motor mount bolts. Let's go ahead, crank it first. Go ahead. this, folks. Sheesh. That's what I like. No leaks. How about it? This is why I love PDD valve springs, okay? It ran for about a minute. No throttle input, right? Just the way PDD sends them out of the box. This is your starter. Woo! Best governor springs on the market, I tell you that right now. Well, guys, after some remedial bench bleed procedure, there's first. Here's reverse. We got ourselves a working transmission. Woo! It's just in front wheel drive. Well, boys, there she is. It's the last time you'll see it in the daylight, but we are gonna drive it out and we'll end this video. But 4-inch stainless pros, 90 with legs, 4x10 performer power driven filter, and then your legendary 12 valve cover topper. You guys have heard it run. You've watched us struggle for, Donald told me to keep track of my hours. I'm about, by the time you guys will see this, I'm about 90 hours into this. Now, keep in mind, 7 hours was just intercooler fab, or like pipe fab. And then there was quite a bit extra as far as resealing the motor, going through it. Some of that stuff I just kind of twisted Donald's arm on because I knew we didn't want to fight it later. Because imagine doing all this work and then you fire it up and it leaks oil on the ground. No one's going to like that. We had extra time on the power steering pump. We had extra time getting the mechanical fan to fit. A little bit of extra time on the cross member. Extra time on the intercooler tabs. But I'd love to see somebody try and do this in a weekend, like some people have claimed. I would be impressed. I would hire them on the spot, no questions asked. So we're gonna go ahead and get the shop cleaned up, but I'll let you guys see this thing drive out of the shop under its own power. First time since it had a 6.5 or 6.2 and pulled in here. Straight back. Yeah, buddy, monster truck. Might still have to bleed that power steering a little bit. It might be in low. Sheesh. That's fine. Give her some revs. Well, guys, that is going to be a wrap on this series. Now, Donald has to get the rear drive shaft made. He has to get his heater core lines installed, and then him and his buddy are going to wire the truck up with batteries and all that. But he did promise he'll bring it back here. We'll do like a driving with it video and probably do some pump tuning. I think I got the pre-boost a little aggressive, but we will deal with that once it can be ran for an extended period of time and dial in the pump. Don, how good did it feel?
Unreal.
Unreal?
No words.
2018?
2017.
2017? And how did it feel backing it up?
Four donor trucks to do this, and I finally did it.
Oh, heck yeah. That is going to be a wrap on the video with Donald. I'm filming this the next day after I had a time to really sift through the footage and just kind of relive this whole process. So it was a lot of fun. And although to myself and some others, the 12 valve might not be the coolest thing, but for Donald, being able to just do what he wanted for so long is really cool for me to be able to be a part of. You heard him 2017, so 7 years he's tried to do it, and we got it done. And what I really liked about doing this project with Donald was we didn't have to cut corners, and he wasn't super rushed, and he wanted everything to look good. And I really kind of thrive in that environment where I don't have to necessarily kill myself on a deadline to get something done. So it was a really interesting job to do, a lot of different aspects to it. Definitely gonna be hard to DIY that in your driveway, maybe to the level that we did, but I think it is a doable swap. I don't know how people have done this in a weekend. That's just nuts to me. But all in all, it was a really cool project, and he was just extremely grateful, and just seeing the excitement on his face was pretty cool, especially when he got to drive it out outside. So we will have a video of like an update once it gets done wiring and a couple other things where we do some pump tuning, as well as just driving around in it. He's gonna bring it back here for the exhaust install. Just let him use the lifts, it's easier. And then I've had quite a few people message, email, call, comment what we would charge to do this job. So what all we did labor wise, again, I had 87 hours in it. If I had to finish the wiring and the last minute stuff, plus saving the time of knowing how to do it now, I would say you're gonna be about 100 hours into this job. That would roughly be $12,500 in labor. Donald said he's around $10,000 in the swap parts, and then the price of the truck. So not for the faint of heart, but if you like the way we did it, and I hope you can appreciate all of the thought and just all the little details, like making the factory fuel, or making the factory fuel lines work and like look good, making the transmission crossmember OEM, trying to make it so that if he needs replacement parts, that a lot of these are not one-off custom jobs. We made our own intercooler tabs, got him some nice stainless piping, a nice stainless intake, a good air filter, a nice turbo, resealed his motor. So again, I've told you guys this from the start, we are not the cheapest shop, and I don't want to be. But if you want that level of work, that's about what I would charge. Any other swaps and stuff, we charge by the hour, and we'll just start billing you either bi-weekly or weekly. As we work on your truck, it'll be the easiest way for you to keep up with the bill and the easiest way for us not to go bankrupt. So again, I really like it. I want to give one last big thank you to all the companies that helped us on this truck. Power Driven Diesel, Fluid Damper, South Bend Clutch, Heating Machine, and I know I'm probably forgetting a few. Stainless Diesel got us set up on the turbocharger. And just a big thank you to all those companies. Big thank you to all you guys watching this series. Like I said, one more episode, but it'll probably be a few months down the road. And I'll leave you on this last thing. We're currently working on the quad cab. I'm looking at it while I'm filming this. That's why I had to redo it, because you guys actually saw way too much of it. But just know I want it right, and I want it to look really, really, really good to complement everything else. And that is going to be the mantra of this year. Like, I don't care about events as much as I did last year. I want it to look good. I want it to be right when we take it out, and I don't want to hodgepodge it, and I don't want to pressure myself. I want to go back to the days where I used to enjoy this a lot more. So hopefully you guys are along for the ride. Like this one, drop your comment. Would you drive it? 1986 K3500, 5-speed, 12 valve, pretty much everyone's favorite dream. Comment. subscribe. And as always, guys, thank you for watching. I'll catch y'all on the next one.